Okay, let's. So we don't have a whole lot of time, and I think that everybody, if judging by my the volume of phone calls in my office, what's available from the SBA, and there's some loans that we talked about the last week, but the one that has gotten everybody is this payroll protection program, and it was supposed to start today, and it actually, from while we were on the call, I've noticed that some of the banks are starting to open up. But let's just talk about this payroll protection program, because this is free money. Okay, what is it? It's a non-recourse loan, which means that you're not on the hook for it unless you commit fraud or do something that is against the rules. That a large portion of it is forgivable for those firms who keep people employed, which was the last slide that Jean was talking about, that Donnie asked about. So how much can you get? Okay, you can get basically what you do, if you can go back to the prior slide, I'm just,
Sorry.
okay, yep. So the amount is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. So basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your monthly payroll, or I'm sorry, your annual payroll, and you are going to, it's not just payroll, and I'll go through some of the details in a slide coming up, but basically take all the money that was given on your W-2, take health benefits that you paid, 401k, employer portion, and add all that up, divide it by 12. That's your average monthly rate. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to multiply that times 2.5, and that's the total amount for the loan. So the payments can be deferred up to 1 year, and the interest rates are no higher than 4%. Next slide, please. So free money, okay. Now the free money portion is, how do you get it forgiven? Okay, so the amounts borrowed under the PPP are eligible for forgiveness equal to the payments made during the 8-week period starting from the date of the loan origination for payroll costs, mortgage interest costs, rent, and utilities. So written into the law, and you might not see it on the application, the non-payroll costs, the mortgage interest, rent, utility, can't exceed 25% of the entire amount. Okay. By the way, you're not getting the entire amount, as I understand it, and I've talked to several folks about it. You're not getting the entire amount forgiven. You're getting, remember, 2.5 months would be approximately 10 weeks. Well, you're going to get 8 weeks of it forgiven. So 2 weeks of it you're going to borrow and you're going to have to pay back. So how do you get your free money? The funds will be guaranteed and governed by the SBA and lent by local banks who are SBA lenders. These banks will be processing applications. Make sure that you have access to such a bank. Next slide. So basically the application is 2 pages, asks a bunch of questions, are you doing illegal things? Are you a citizen or a legal resident of the U.S.? There's several questions, but really the crux of the matter is this calculation, and it's your average monthly payroll. And I created this slide about a couple of hours ago and got it updated. If you applied for any other loans because of the coronavirus, all of the monies that you get are going to be put together in a bucket. And so if you get the grant from the other loan, that $10,000, then you're going to get $10,000 less here. Okay. So what do you need to do? You need to get those, your salaries, and what goes into payroll. So it's payment of salaries and wages, go to W-2s. If you're in the restaurant business, cash tip or equivalent, vacation, family leave, any separation agreements that you've signed, healthcare benefits, retirement benefits, as I spoke about, payment of state and local tax assessed on compensation of employees, and payments of any compensation to a sole proprietor or independent contractor. But be careful, because you're actually that. While it's written in here, what I read is that those people are eligible for the PPP as well. So you might not be putting your 1099 in there. The last thing that you have to do is you have to exclude anybody who's making over $100,000. You can only take the 100,000. So if they're making 120, you've got to knock out 20,000. Next slide, please.
And one just point to make on that,
Yeah.
Dan. I know a lot of people have been asking about that, and some people are confused. Some people read that as the $100,000 person comes out, and they don't. It's just up to the 100K.
Everything over 100 comes
Right.
out.
Exactly.
So when's the big day? Well, the big day was today for corporations, LLCs, and partnerships. Friday the April 3rd. Sole proprietorships and independent contractors start next Friday, and the funds are limited to $350 billion, which is probably a lot of money, but not for this program. So most people expect that the funds will be gone by next Friday. In fact, most people, if you've been following this, think that they're going to be gone by Monday. Okay, so next slide, please. So everything works great with the government, right? Well, I got this email last night from Chase. Dear business client, we want to help you. Financial institutions like ours are still awaiting guidance from the SBA and the US Treasury. As a result, Chase will most likely not be able to start accepting applications today as we hoped. Well, while we were on this call, I've been clicking because, you know, like everybody else, I'm waiting to find out. Chase's
Whoa. You've been clicking. We're doing a webinar here, Dan. Come on.
I've been clicking,
what are we doing?
and Chase's website is up and running. However, I do have somebody who's in one of who kind of emailed me and said that what did he say? He said something about they're just appeasing people because you got to get a call back anyway. So basically, this whole thing is an S show, and of course that's what you would expect from this magnitude of a program and this amount of money. Okay, next slide. Okay. So anyway, if you can get through to your bank today and put your application in, that's great. Keep trying, because I saw on Sunday that Secretary Mnuchin said that he will be going back to Congress if they run out of money and look for more appropriations, because they're not going to let people just hang on this. So what are some of the requirements to qualify? You have to be in operation since February 15th, 2020. I have a son who's a CPA. Yesterday he asked me, Dad, why don't I start a company and get some of this free money? And I said, that's exactly what your generation is looking for. So we're in. And I said, no, but you had to have already been in business. Okay, you have to have paid salaries, payroll taxes or 1099s, non-employee compensation, and you have to be less than 500 employees. There are programs for folks who are over 500, but this is for 500 or less. Next slide. Okay, now if you're looking for this forgiveness, then you need to keep people on the payroll, right? So the amount of loan forgiveness may be reduced by any employment reduction. It's interesting. I actually learned from Jean. I didn't realize that you could just pay people to be on furlough and have it work. I thought that you actually had to have them working, but it makes sense.
Well,
right?
if you furlough them, and you're paying them a lower rate, that's just going to hurt you on the calculation on the backside. It's not like you really get away from it, right?
Why would you pay them a lower rate? You're getting the money from the government anyway.
Exactly. That's kind of my point.
So if the level of employment during the covered period is not at least equal to the pre-existing employment level, the amount of loan forgiveness will be reduced by a proportionate amount. Next. So the loan proceeds, as I said before, 75% of it has to, at least 75% of it has to go to payroll costs, which include, can include your healthcare benefits and salaries, and the other not more than 25% can go to mortgage payments, rents, utilities, or interest on debts incurred before February 15th, 2020. Next slide. So, by the way, even though everybody's rushing to do this by today and Monday, this thing goes on for quite a while. I believe it's June you have, but if the money runs out, it runs out. So once you get your money, then you have to apply for this loan forgiveness. And once you get approved, they're saying that the money's going to show up in 24 hours. And again, if the proceeds are misused, meaning that you're not paying payroll, mortgage interest, utilities, like on that last slide, then you will be personally guaranteeing that loan, and it will no longer be a non-recourse loan. It'll be a recourse loan, and they'll go after you to get the money. Next slide. I believe that's it. I believe, Donnie, you're up.
All right, so just a disclaimer before I get going here. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Marissa. Next week, we're going to do a deep dive on sales, and we're going to do a deep dive on marketing. I'm going to blow through some numbers here. We're way past time. So I'm just going to kind of, our last webinar, it was just kind of boots on the ground. Here's some things that you need to do. Today, I'm just going to run through a few numbers, and then next week, the webinar is going to be all about marketing and all about sales. And so, so I'm going to go fast, but just next week, we're going to take the deep dive on this. So let's talk about customer
We'll also be talking about the finances behind marketing and sales.
Well, everyone's going to be fat with cash. They got to find somewhere to spend it, right?
Right.
So it's payment. Well, no, the websites will still be down, so who knows? I don't know. So anyway, changes that have happened since our webinar last week is that now, this is the latest survey we just got from Suzy.com, is that 71% people are going from, hey, this is going to be a 1 week, 2 week thing, to people are very concerned. Like more and more people are taking this seriously. And I think mainly the reason this is because it's having a bigger impact across the country, and it's becoming more and more personal. And the reason I put this slide up here is I want you to really pay attention to the fears, right? In marketing, you're always concerned about what is the fear, what is the emotion. And it's very, very interesting if you look at 1, 2, and 3. If we were running high times or whatever, you would think that would be normally common. It's not. That has been changing. And so let's go to the next slide. So what that means is that people now are thinking, hey, this is going to go a lot longer than we anticipated. With 59% believing that it's going to last longer than 3 months. Oddly enough, females are more optimistic than males, which again, when you look at our target demographic, it's typically the female that we're targeting in our marketing. So that's good to know. But a lot of folks are starting to. This is changing, right? The mindset now is changing from, hey, this is going to be a 2 or 3 week, maybe a 4 week thing, to now folks are like, oh my gosh, this is actually going to go longer than 3 months. Let's go to the next slide. So as you would expect, since folks are thinking that if you've watched any kind of television commercials, these car dealerships are just getting hammered. They're saying 6 months, you don't have to make any payments. They'll finance at 0% for 84 months, and you can kind of see that. And so now there's this swing of where luxury items, kind of these niceties, everyone's kind of pulling their cards back in close to their chest, and you're going to see this over the next 3 months. Let's go to the next slide. So what we're starting to see, this is just kind of summarizing all of this, is that we're starting to see a shift in the health, where the health of the family is number one. And of course, where that is being the top priority. You would think that's top priority always, but actually the data shows otherwise. And most are starting to believe that this is going to last longer than 3 months. Let's go to the next slide. Now, let's take that fact with the fact that screen time is up 50%. And the question becomes like, where is the 50%? So let's go to the next slide. If you look at this, what this shows you that in general for major sectors, almost everyone's website traffic is down. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I'm going to spend a ton of time on it next week and talking about it, because there's a lot of data here in terms of what it means. But you can see, right, the top things that traffic is way up for, as you would imagine, finance, food, right, healthcare, and then media. Everything else is down. Well, pharma is up too. And so what that tells you is that people are very scared, and they're very interested in their own health and the health of their family. They are very much into this like health and safety mode. look at travel, right? Look at, real estate, look at, just construction, like construction projects, those types of, everything is down. And that's a big issue in general. So let's go to the next slide. So the impact that we're seeing is number one, and I'm going to talk about strategies on our next webinar, but if you're in residential pest control right now, you need to be talking about health and safety. Like that needs to be your message, that needs to be in all your messaging, and you need to be talking about protecting family, and you need to address that fear, right? If you're in commercial pest control, and by the way, on the residential pest control side, almost all of our clients, not all, but almost all are having record months. Like, I mean, I know, and I don't say that like bragging at all. I'm just making the point that folks who are heavy in residential and are heavy on the digital side, they are seeing this benefit right now. Now, folks who are heavy commercial, it's the exact opposite, actually. A lot of those folks are, no one's in the office. I mean, food processors, I mean, obviously, if there's something critical like that, there's really no impact. But for a lot of our commercial clients, they are hurting. And of course,
we're seeing the exact same thing, Donnie. We're hearing about how everybody's scared and they're waiting for the shoe to drop, but it hasn't. We've got most of our clients are up for Q1, and they're just waiting for the shoe to drop. But as of right now, it's a little eerie, but
it is a little eerie. It is. Yep. So hopefully, again, I'm going to talk a lot more about this in our next webinar. We're going to dig a lot deeper into the numbers, but our door-to-door folks and our commercial folks, you can kind of see everyone's kind of coming back to the home. Everyone's kind of coming back to the family, and everything else is getting shut off. So let's go to the next slide. What that turns into, I just threw up a real quick thing here for cancels. Again, this is on the residential side. Triangle is almost, well, they are exclusively residential. Not much of a change in cancels. I said last week on our webinar that this week would be the real telltale sign as to what the residential market's going to do. I'm not seeing so far either with cancels, and go to the next slide, or with our credit card decline rate, anything different than usual. In fact, it's almost like it's been a non-event. If you were strictly to look at the numbers in terms of sales, you look at our decline rate and you look at our cancel rate, you would never know that there's a pandemic on the residential side.
Well, now, the interesting thing about your last slide, Donnie, is that kind of proves that all these people move. That's why they all stop your service. Well, nobody's moving during this whole thing, but you still have 6 moves. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's, of course they're moving. They're on lockdown.
That's right. Got nothing better to do.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So just a real quick marketing update, a few things. So, hey, Google released a stimulus package, in case you're wondering. They're so concerned about your health and safety. I'm sure everyone knows that. No, actually, they are doing an ads credit. They just announced this. It's $340 million for small businesses. That'd be credit for ads, and it goes back to January 1st. They said that they will roll it out. You can't apply for it. You don't know what's coming. Hopefully, some of our customers are going to see it, but it's going to be on the search network with their display and with YouTube. And so I would anticipate a lot of our customers are going to see this, especially on the residential side. Let's go to the next update. I talked about this last week, but if you look at internet traffic for coronavirus or COVID-19, it is by far, and I mean by far, the most searched term on the internet. But don't go thinking that you're going to be wise and start tagging us to part of your ads, because if you do that, you're going to get suppressed both at Google and Facebook. So stay away from that. I would create an information page on your website, but I certainly would not be putting this in any of my ad or my marketing material. Next slide. Pause for effect.
Sorry about that.
Well, you can't see it, but I'm telling you, the next slide is just absolutely amazing. Oh, shoot. All right. Anyways, next thing is that Google reviews are paused. Again, I talked about this last week. You can leave reviews. You can comment on reviews, which I don't know why you would comment on them, because you probably won't see them. But you can't respond to them until they get published. And again, it appears that Google is out of the office on that front. Next slide. And then we've talked about this as well. Can you go to the next slide real quick? Yeah, so one thing I would highly recommend that you do, that you can post a COVID-19 message on your Google local page. We actually have a template on the resources page that we give to all of our clients. and we're actually doing it for them automatically. If you're a client of Coalmarch, we're already doing this for you, so don't worry about it. But where you can, I mean, what we're saying to folks is like, look, we're open, we're an essential service, you know, because a lot of businesses now are seeing like, hey, because of COVID-19, this business may be closed or they don't have hours or whatever. We want to clearly communicate to our customers that we are open, that we're an essential service. And, you know, again, just make it super, super clear that they can still call. Let's go to the next slide. Again, just a reminder, almost everything, not quite everything that we've talked about or we try to reference, we're going to throw up here on this website. So you could just feel free to go to that, download any resources that you need. Email me if you think it's dumb or I have a spelling mistake. That's perfectly fine. Next slide. This is contact information for Dan and myself. These are our office numbers. Please feel free to reach out to us. And then next slide. The last thing I just want to say is, again, next week we're going to be talking about growing the revenue stream, and we're going to go very deep on, I'm going to go very deep on the marketing side in terms of numbers. We're going to have someone on that is actually in depth with, you know, this sanitation services that's coming out, and we're going to have someone else who is doing digital and who's actually growing despite the pandemic. And so that's going to be the cover for, you know, I mean, I wish it could be like Young and the Restless where we have like some cliffhanger. I don't know, Dan, but General Hospital, maybe we need to work on our drama here at the end. But I think it's going to be a great, well, I don't think it's going to be great, because I think, you know, a lot of folks, especially folks who are heavy into commercial or those that are heavy into door to door, I think this next session is going to be absolutely critical that they at least set that on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that going through all of this in our business, it's all about, from our perspective, we've got to help our clients. We've got to keep you alive and healthy, and you know, we're going to get through this, and we're going to get through it a whole lot better than most industries. And so, you know, if we can, if there's any questions or comments, you can email me, call me, or Donnie, and we're happy to answer. But we'll keep doing this on Friday. I mean, we've got a terrific attendance, and so people seem to be interested, and as long as people are interested, we'll keep doing this.
Yeah, and one other thing is we're going to end the webinar, but we're not going to end it, and we're going to think that we ended it so that people can laugh and text me in.
Like last week, we'll do the outtakes. That's what we're charging for, is the outtakes.
All right. I think we're good. I think we're done. Thanks everyone who.
Thanks so much.
And we'll see you guys next week. So.
Take care. Are we off?
No, we're on outtakes.
Oh,
it's still being recorded. You wait.
The charge, right? That was really, really good.